morning, everybody. Welcome to NDWC Live, this special report today because of the system in the Northwestern Gulf Beta, the second letter of the Greek alphabet we're using. Back on Thursday morning, we were talking about it being Wilfred, and all kinds of stuff happened on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean to make it so that we ended up being Beta, and it's impacting Texas, Louisiana. Part of Texas where I am, skies are blue. We had a gorgeous weekend, except for some huge run-up on the beach at South Padre Island. No other issues here in South Texas, but that's not the case everywhere. A reminder that our sponsors for the event are Plylocks Hurricane Clips. These little guys right here. Put them on your plywood, cut it to the windows, and slide it right in. It'll protect your windows during a storm. Also, USAA. We appreciate everything they do for us, making this conference a possibility for a number of years now. And the South Padre Island Convention and Visitors Bureau, the host and the home of the National Tropical Weather Conference for many years. We hope to be back in person in 2021. If the pandemic behaves, maybe we'll be back and get the chance to see all of you once again. So let's talk about Tropical Storm Beta. And for that, let's go to the expert, Bill Reed from the National Hurricane Center, former director, now pretty close to Tropical Storm Beta. Bill?
Good morning, Tim, and everybody online with us today. We've been busy all weekend trying to decipher just what the impacts were going to be from this tropical storm in the Gulf. I think I'll start today with a shot of the satellite imagery there. Can you see it, Tim?
Yes.
Okay, very good. We've had these periodic bursts of convection around the center over the last 2 days, which flare up very nicely and then quickly die off, probably due to the dry air that's influencing them there and the outflow that goes with that. But here is a tiny little beta on the satellite imagery. It actually has a large impact. Its circulation covers a good chunk of Texas, Louisiana, and the Western Gulf. I'm not showing the soundings today, but what you can see in some of this outflow, clouds moving away from the storm and the anticyclonic flow in that the outflow mechanism is much improved over, say, Saturday and has been doing so. I think the dry air is more left in patches. The only sounding that showed dry air was down here in Brownsville. Corpus had moistened up quite a bit. And of course, Louisiana, Lake Charles will be down for several months due to Laura. In addition to the rain bands that occasionally sprout up around in close to the circulation, we've had this large band of rain. We frequently see that in these type of tropical storms extending from the Gulf up into southern Louisiana. And that's producing a lot more rain actually than what we've been seeing over here so far. Quick look at the radar. The rain's been picking up quite nicely from about my area up here down to the Angleton, Freeport, Lake Jackson. And these bands are forming and coming on shore. We might actually start seeing some of the heavier rain that's been advertised since the get-go as being the main threat from our tropical storm. The center is down in here. It occasionally gets some echoes around it so you can clearly define it on radar, but it's somewhere within this broad center. And if we look at the recon data, the latest in there, it's been out there all morning. 3 close-in fixes there confirm the slow west-northwest to west motion. It kind of wobbles in these weak steering currents. The yellows and light greens are the tropical storm force winds at flight level. They're confined to a fairly small area now around the center of the storm, but they are on all 4 quadrants there, so it's still a fairly well-defined circulation. Impacts so far, the tides have been the biggest impact. What I'm showing here is the entrance to Galveston Bay, and starting last night, went into the mode called major flooding, where you're getting it into the streets enough to drown the cars if you're driving in. It should not be getting in houses at this level, and it stayed up all night because the astronomical tide didn't drop off much between the peak high tide during the evening hours. We're going into a steep low tide cycle now, so we might see a reduction in the tidal flooding, but the wave action is still going on at the coast. And then overnight tonight, we'll have another period of high tide in there. And this is pretty representative of what we see up and down the coast from And as Tim pointed out, we're getting right up into the dunes, even down on South Padre Island. A long period of east to northeast winds sets up the tides on the western side of the Gulf of Mexico. So the beach effects and the surge effects, as we tell people all the time, are a long way away from the wind effects of the storm. Even back in the bays, we're starting to get some flooding. This was about the middle of Galveston Bay on the west side of it. And that's getting into some roadways in there. And they don't have as much a change in tide, but they'll be in the same episode overnight tonight and tomorrow morning on the tidal effects. Okay, the advisory that just came out from the Hurricane Center changes little from the last several and has been verifying quite well on the track and intensity the last 2 days of keeping it a tropical storm, moving it slowly west-northwest, landfall late evening to early morning hours tonight, somewhere between Rockport and Port O'Connor, if you really want to take a good stab at it there, but generally in the central Texas, middle Texas coast area, and very slowly moving inland, and then very slowly starting a northeast turn. And that'll take it through most of the day tomorrow before a trough approaching from the west is supposed to pick a little bit of speed up, and by then a depression moving it across into Louisiana before dissipating in Mississippi. Normally, you wouldn't expect it to stay tropical storm this long. I mean, it still may decrease more because it's just fairly minimal tropical storm force winds to begin with. But the proximity to the water and the relatively flat, smooth terrain over there, the hurricane specialists think it could stay up as much as 24 hours after landfall. The tropical storm force winds extend out quite a ways, mainly in gusts. We've been seeing gusts down on the island to 40 and 45 on the buoy right offshore there fairly frequently in the overnight hours. On the impacts, the peak surges have been in the 2 to 4 foot range, and that continues for the section of the coast from near Matagorda Bay up through Sabine Pass, and then from there eastward 1 to 3, and south of Port Aransas 1 to 3 also in there. That's enough. With that going on for a couple more days, we're going to still see, at the end result will be a lot of beach erosion. We'll see a lot of sand moved in the area there, a lot of dune damage. We actually had a part of a fishing pier break off in the wave action in Galveston overnight. If you recall, we were advertising rainfall as much as 15 to 20 inches in the forecasts on the Friday and Saturday near where the storm made landfall. With the forecast for very slow motion, that would normally be a good forecast, but I think the dry air and stability of the air that is surrounding the storm has inhibited and will continue to inhibit the really extreme amounts that you can get with a slow moving tropical storm. And this is the current forecast out of WPC, and that's a swath of 4 to 6, little core in there, maybe 6 to 10 near landfall. If we get a blow up, that's certainly possible around Matagorda Bay. And with the heavier rains, with this big outer band that's in a lot moister environment over here in Louisiana. But this is manageable, spread out over several days. The flooding should not be nearly as severe as what could happen in this slow moving tropical storm. This is water vapor, mid-level water vapor imagery. And it shows there's still a large area of dry air encompassing the circulation itself. And you really can't tell from this kind of imagery whether there's more dry air within the storm or not right now. It doesn't appear to be. So maybe if it had more time over water, it might become more problematic looking at some of the soundings. And again, the moisture is very, there's no dry air evident in this band out here, though there may be some. There's also a cold front that went through, and the surface dew points have been down in the 60s in the northern Gulf here. And some of that dry, stable air is probably also impacting the amount of rain we might get. I think that's all I had on Beta. Let's look at the broad view here. And again, Beta, for a small storm, is producing a lot of weather. You can see that the circulation affects most of the western Gulf of Mexico, and the interaction of it and that old front is a lot of cloud cover across and rain across much of the Gulf Coast region of the United States. Have a little area down here. It's outlooked maybe later in the week off the west coast of Florida, maybe encounter some better conditions for development. We'll just have to wait and see on that. Remnants of Wilfred. The circulation is completely detached from any significant convection, so it's no longer being advised on, and the outflow and implications from Teddy are going to keep it that way. This is actually the remnants of Paulette up here between the Azores and the mainland of Europe, and it still has about a 60% chance of rebirthing either subtropically or tropically over the next 5 days. The big story in the Atlantic Ocean is Teddy. Here's the hurricane itself. There's a strong extratropical system that it's going to merge with, and I'll show you that in there in a second. And a huge area of expansive weather incorporated with it. Winds and seas are being impacted all the way from the east coast of the U.S. down all the way down into the Bahamas from the large swells emanating out from under it. Okay, we'll get back here to the beginning. This 500 millibar forecast from the 6Z GFS, and there's Teddy separate from the westerlies at this initial hour, and it starts to merge with that short wave, which captures it totally, very similar to what happened with Sandy and a short wave, which was back in 2012. And then they have this large storm continues as a large extratropical storm up into Atlantic Canada, where they're going to probably see a lot of power outages and tree damages, and maybe even some structural damages, depending on how much the wind holds together. There's just an overview of what I talked about from the outlook. I wanted to show you the track forecast on Teddy. And it's been consistent all along. It'll be a hurricane until it leaves the Gulf Stream and gets fully extratropical in the colder waters south of Nova Scotia. Forecast to still be an extratropical storm at hurricane strength when it makes landfall there and continues as a strong extratropical storm affecting Newfoundland and Labrador as it goes into the Atlantic and is purely extratropical from then. So that's what I had to talk about today. I'd be more than happy to entertain any questions or discussion.
We have a couple of questions coming in online, Bill. Bobby wants to know about Victoria. What's the timeline for a place like Victoria on the impact from Beta? Okay.
You should be getting rain anytime now out of the rain bands that are around there. I think the 4 to 6 inch rain over the next 2 days would be the main effects there. The gust to tropical storm force, usually what I tell people is you got lawn chairs and awnings and stuff like that. You stow them because they can get torn up and blown around. You really don't want that to happen. Localized street flooding in your normally flood-prone areas, I think, would be the main threat.
Also, a question out of Corpus Christi: will there be any impact in Corpus Christi aside from the obvious bay problems?
My guess is no. You might get some cloud cover, and if it really gets moist enough, maybe some outer rain bands will get that far down. But the tendency has been towards most of the rain being north of the center.
That's the bulk of the questions that come in. We appreciate those who have asked those today. So, Bill, we were talking before we went on about how here, where I am in South Texas, on Friday we were forecasting, anywhere from 8 to 16 inches of rain, and on Saturday it went to 0 just that quickly. Once we got a better idea where this was going, and one of our models, the IBM graph model, did a good job of picking up on that. Now that this thing is moving, we're pretty confident in the forecast path, it seems like.
Yes, there's been some subtle differences between the models used for track forecasting about how far inland it goes before turning off to the northeast. But the distinct turns, the one that was going northeast and then west, and then the landfall, and then or near landfall, and then northeast, and slowing down at the time it makes those turns has been materializing pretty much as the models show. and quite useful for giving you confidence in the forecast.
That's been pretty amazing to watch. That forecast itself, the S curve, if you will, has been pretty significant. So, no, that's all I have. That's good. Good information. I appreciate that. And I know there's a lot of folks who had their guard up the other day, let it down, but they don't need to let it down until this thing passes. The good news is the rainfall swath of 15 to 20 inches not materializing, and there's a lot of rain, but not like that.
Yeah, so far so good. I'm always alert to surprises at the last minute, but I think if we were to have a surprise amount more than what's currently forecast, it would be highly localized.
There you go. All right, Bill, thank you. Thank you. I don't know if Alex, if you got anything on your end that you want to mention, otherwise we'll wrap it up.
I think that's pretty much it. I saw one other question come through. They were asking about the potential for tropical storm winds along the coast.
I think, yeah, all day today and tonight, anywhere from actually even the Louisiana coast in gusts for the most part, down through just south of where the center goes in, you can get tropical storm force winds on the coast.
Okay, well, that should be it then.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Of course, we thank all of our sponsors that make this event possible. Bill, thanks for being there for us this morning. Glad that the impact on this is going to be not as bad on you or me, and hopefully a lot of people are not going to be seriously impacted by this storm. Don't forget Plylocks Hurricane Clips, one of our sponsors, also USAA and the South Padre Island Convention and Visitors Bureau. More shows coming up in the weeks ahead. The author of A Furious Sky is going to be joining us soon, so be tuned. He's got some great stories about the 500-year history of hurricanes in America, some terrific stories. Some that go back even before Bill was working. I mean, that's a long time back. So should be a fascinating presentation. So thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it.